Thanks to everybody on the chat room, man. It's going back and forth on the NIL, on this and that, and tomorrow National Signing Day. Today, Baylor did get, and we will cover nationally. Jeremy Crabtree of On3.com will join us. He's been covering recruiting around the country for quite some time. Some of the names have changed of where some of these analysts have worked or where they are now, but he'll join us in the next segment. We have Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com recruiting analyst, the Bearcast with Craig every Tuesday for an hour. So tell us about Devontae Tazzino and his commitment, and what does it mean to this class, Grayson? Thanks for your time.
Yeah, guys, this is a great pickup for the Bears. I mean, he was a guy who became a priority right after a summer camp, to be honest. He camped at Baylor on June 5th and then got the offer shortly after. He's got a nice offer list: Nebraska, TCU, Minnesota, Kansas State, Vanderbilt. So solid offer list, a very solid player, right around 6'4", 250. I think he's going to be, they're going to try to build him, I think, into the mold of a TJ Franklin, who was a little bit bigger than Tazzino at this time, but still a guy who, he had a lot of room to grow into his body. And we've seen TJ do that over the years, and I think Devontae can be built in a similar way and play a similar role for the Bears going forward. They needed help on the defensive line, and they got it with him. And obviously, I think the local connection, that helps. Baylor needs to do a good job in that Central Texas area, and this is one of those guys who they'd been recruiting from the area, and they were able to land him today. So this was a big one coming off of his official visit. And it just shows how well that official visit, I think, went for many of the prospects who were at Baylor over the weekend.
So, Grayson, what does that make, 17 or 16?
That makes 19.
19.
19 commits. Yeah, 19 commits. And I think all of them will sign tomorrow. I know Jeremy Patton said his signing day ceremony won't be till, or Jeremy Evans, I guess. His ceremony is going January 10th. But I do believe that will just be his ceremony. I think he will still be signing during the early signing period.
So, Grayson, going back to Tazzino real quick, I know you're describing a little bit, but do you have any type of a comparison, or what kind of actual role? Is he a rush guy? Is he kind of run stuffer? How would you describe him?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, like I said, very similar to the role that TJ Franklin plays for Baylor. I think eventually he's going to try to be at that level. Now, if you watch his film, he kind of does a little bit of everything, really. He's not an elite pass rusher, but a solid pass rusher. He plays well against the run as well, can put his hand in the ground and really get after you. And I think the bigger thing is he's already 6'4", 250. And, we've talked about this a lot, Craig, on the podcast, on the Bearcast, that is, just talking about how, Baylor's taken a lot of guys that are, 6'4", 230 in the past, and then trying to put a ton of weight on them. Or, B.J. Thompson, who is 6'6", 215, and trying to put a ton of weight on him. Well, they're not going to have to worry about that with Tazzino, because he already has a very solid base and a solid weight already. If you get him on campus, you can kind of naturally build him up to the weight that will probably be his playing weight, which I believe will probably be around 280. It's probably going to be a good weight for him to get on the field.
We're talking to Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com, and again, recruiting analyst with us on Sikkim365 Radio, 365 Sports. Any surprises tomorrow? Is there somebody they're waiting for something to happen actually tomorrow?
Yeah, I actually think there's two big ones that are looming tomorrow. I guess you could say three as well. I'll get to the third one in a minute, but the first two are pretty obvious. So Lake High School, defensive lineman, this is out of Mississippi, Calvin Dinkins. I think he's going to be choosing between Florida, Mississippi State, and Baylor. He took his official visit to Baylor back in June. The staff really liked him, and he would fill in that Siaki Ika role as a nose tackle. He's 6'4", 310 already. Great arm length, great hand size. I think it's going to be a battle to the finish. And, those two SEC offers are pretty recent, whereas the Baylor connection has been there for a long time. So it's really a matter of, does he want the relationship, or does he want, the school? Does he want the SEC program? And, being from the state of Mississippi, most of those kids go to Mississippi State or Ole Miss. So That's going to be a tough factor to get over, but I think the relationship Baylor has definitely gives them a chance in that recruitment. And then the other one is probably the biggest name of the day tomorrow, and that's Louisville 4-star wide receiver, top 150 player, Armani Winfield. He was a surprise official visitor over the weekend. Baylor's been recruiting him for a long time. It just was a matter of were they going to get an official visit, and they finally did. And Armani ended up being on campus over the weekend, getting a chance to really get to know the coaches even more on a personal level. He visited during the spring, even when he was committed to UT. So there's been a ton of relationship building with him, and it all culminates to tomorrow. And I kind of believe it's going to be between Texas, Michigan State, and Baylor. And right now, guys, I think Baylor might have the edge in his recruitment heading into tomorrow. And honestly, I mean, if you look across the state, if you're telling me that Baylor's got a recruiting class with Jordan Neighbors and Armani Winfield to go along with the 5 wide receivers they brought in last year, I mean, they've really done a nice job, or they will have done a nice job loading up that wide receiver room if they're able to land Armani tomorrow.
Tomorrow, Jordan Neighbors of Heath out of Rockwall will sign with Baylor, and he will join us, in fact, tomorrow. We do know that Texas Tech made a run at him because of the Joey McGuire connection. Kyler Jordan, who plays in Lubbock, out of Lubbock, he, of course, also there in that backyard, apparently, is sticking to Baylor as well. How much wins were those once Baylor could get on the road and get in front of these players and maybe calm the nerves a little bit?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. The Joey McGuire relationship was solid in Jordan Neighbors' recruitment, but his bigger relationship was actually with James Blanchard. That's actually the guy who built an amazing connection with Jordan Neighbors. I mean, those two are very, very close, and he was actually the first person to ever contact Jordan about Baylor. And so they built a great relationship, and that definitely played a role in his recruitment, along with Joey, because that's Joey's area, of course. And then Joey had a great relationship with Kyler Jordan as well. They actually did an in-home visit with Kyler Jordan, Texas Tech did. And, both of those guys have been locked into Baylor for a long time, and they just really, they need those in-home visits with Dave Aranda and with their position coaches, and just getting to see those guys again, I think really reaffirmed things for both of them. And ultimately, I think they were always going to end up Bears. But yeah, there was a stretch in there where I think, Tech was trying to make a run at them, and both of them just needed to kind of weigh in their options and decide where they truly wanted to be. And honestly, I think sometimes that's actually the best thing for a recruit, because those two guys, they didn't really have a tough decision the first time around. But then the second time, they kind of got to reaffirm their commitment. And a lot of times that can make your commitment even stronger. So I think it could be a really big positive for both of them in the long run.
How do you expect Baylor to use the transfer portal this year? Again, we haven't heard of a lot of guys transferring. I mean, the ones who are already kind of announced, but a long time ago. So how do you expect to see them get in there this year?
Oh, they're going to use it a lot, Paul. I think that there are direct areas that they're going to need to address through the portal. Specifically, a veteran wide receiver, I think, is an area that they could look at. A cornerback is definitely a need. I would expect them to take a transfer cornerback. I know Ohio State transfer Ryan Watts. He's out of Little Elm, Texas, and he's a guy who already has been contacted by Baylor. So there's been, a lot of kind of whispers here and there. But I think the biggest thing, Paul, honestly, is that, bowl season is right around the corner, and a lot of guys are going to wait to make decisions till after the bowl. And so I think Baylor, while they want to be aggressive, I think it's very important that they kind of get to see the whole landscape of the transfer portal before rushing any decision. Because there could be an all-conference guy that ends up leaving his school, and then, Baylor would like to be involved in that, and they don't want to get rid of all of their spots. So I think it's going to be a nice little chess match, but I do expect Baylor to continue to utilize it this year and going forward. It's been a real weapon for them. As we saw this year, they did a great job with the portal, and they've done a great job finding guys who fit their culture and their scheme, and that's been a key factor. So they're going to let the process play out a little bit, but yeah, I do expect them to take a couple transfers out of the portal this year for sure.
He's only been on staff for a little while now. I mean, as far as one of the 10 main assistants, but Caleb Collins, I've seen a lot of him in pictures of, some of these visits that have been taking place. Have you been able to pick up at all kind of the impact that he has had or can have, or kind of where he is as far as his recruiting abilities as a new coach?
Yeah, he's been a really important guy, I would say, for the staff this kind of period right now. It's been really important for him to get out on the trail and really start to get to know guys, because he's got to build relationships quickly, because he's a little bit behind the eight ball just because he hasn't been the position coach for as long as Joey was, for instance, during that time period. So yeah, it's been really good for him, I think, to go out there. You're seeing him visit all over the place. It looks like Houston could end up being his area. That's at least where I've seen him the most. Now, that may change during the off season if they try to move guys around or whatnot, especially because right now, Joey recruited heavily in that Oklahoma area and, of course, Dallas. So they're going to have to figure out a way to reshuffle that. But, yeah, I think he's done a nice job. He's been out on the trail. He's gone and talked to recruits. I know Carmelo Jones had a really good time with Caleb Collins, getting to know him a little bit. And, he'll probably be his position coach at Baylor. And so I think it was really important for Caleb Collins over this last month, really, to go out, get to know the area even more, and get to know prospects and coaches and schools, just all those little things that come with being a great recruiter and building those great relationships. I think it's all a learning curve, but it's something that I have full confidence in him doing, because he was already doing some recruiting even before getting this position.
All right, Grayson, get some sleep. I know tomorrow morning you guys are hosting a National Signing Day show. You did the Bearcast. Craig and Grayson did Bearcast today. That's up. I just saw that on the site. Thanks for your time. Ought to be interesting. And the Tizino ad doesn't hurt as they try to cultivate their staff in class of 2022. That's Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim 365 recruiting analyst, with us normally Fridays, but with, of course, National Signing Day tomorrow, joining us today to give us a little bit of a sneak peek. Also, Jeremy Crabtree. I've known Jeremy forever. I started in radio in 1990, and there was a guy named Max Emfinger, and he was pretty much the only one that did any kind of recruiting type book. It was a book. It was like a magazine, a leaflet, kind of like a guide. And, of course, things have changed, exploded everywhere since that time. And you imagine that was always a segment. I could just say, we have Max Emfinger, here's the number to call, and the lines would just go brrr. And man, things have changed along the way. Jeremy Crabtree, on3.com, next on Sikkim 365 Radio. Pickup Outfitters, not a bad